Okay, so everyone, welcome. We're excited to have this bridge forum tonight. We have three really great presenters. I will have Emmeline go first, and then Bev second, and then Sarah third. Uh, and I'll let the presenters introduce themselves. But Emmeline, I will give one slight introduction. She's a research assistant in the BYU Record Linking Lab, and she'd been working on a really cool project that I thought would be great to have her share with this group. And with that, Emmeline, I'll pass it off to you.
Thanks, Dr. Bryce. Let's see if this works. Share my screen. Okay,
Perfect.
so Dr. Bryce asked me to present on one of the projects that the Record Linking Lab has been working on, and we've been doing some research about the Military Academy West Point. And so, kind of some of the context for this research. There's a cool natural experiment that happened during World War I, where the government wanted more soldiers to be available to fight. And so they shortened the curriculum that you needed to go through at West Point during this time so that you could graduate early, get your diploma, and then theoretically go off to war. And so there were like six classes, six cohorts that got to shorten their education by a year, but still get the same degree. And this is a cool natural experiment because we know that college people who graduate from college make more money, but there's kind of two hypotheses for why that's true. There's the human capital hypothesis and the signaling hypothesis. The human capital is like college actually gives you useful skills that then makes people want to hire you. And the signaling theory is that you don't really learn anything useful in college. But once you graduate college, you get a piece of paper that tells your employers you're the kind of person who does homework and can get work done. And so then they'll hire you and teach you everything you actually need to know at work. And so the question is, does college actually teach you anything useful, or is it just a way to tell people that you're someone that they should hire? And so because some of these graduates received less education but got that same degree, we can kind of figure out uh, whether that extra learning is actually important. Um, so what happened is the lab got access to some West Point records with lists of cadets and things like that. And then we wanted to be able to connect that information from these records to family search profiles. And that was done using AI and also by hand. And then we wanted to make sure we could find these people's census records over the years. And we were especially interested in finding their 1940 census to kind of figure out, what job are they doing at this point? How much money are they making, 15, 20 years out from graduating? And this is, slightly before World War II. So they were hopefully all still working in America, and we can kind of see what their job outcomes are um, and then analyze that data. So for linking these cadets to Family Search, this by hand process, it was done by, or we had a bunch of people in the lab doing it, and we also had BYU Pathways students helping. And I'm just going to show one example of how we did this linking process. So we had a spreadsheet like this, and you've got a cadet's first name, often middle name. You've got that cadet's last name, their birthplace, we would often have, and then their birthday. And then so would pull up Family Search. You go to Family Tree and then Recents, um, and then you go to Add Unconnected Person. This is one of the best ways to search for people in Family Search because Family Search doesn't want you to create a duplicate. So it'll show up or it'll pull up people that it thinks might be the person that you're inputting so that you don't create that duplicate. And so, I'm putting his last name, first name. It's a man, he's dead. Whoops, this is his birthplace. And so you'd put everything in there, press next, and it'll pull up people it thinks are similar. This guy looks like he's the same guy. So you press view person. And our goal is to try and find a 1940 census for this guy because that's where we're pulling our data from. So sources, this guy has a 1940 census. This is actually one that I added a couple weeks ago. A lot of these people, when we pulled up their profiles, they didn't have that 1940 census. And so we'd have to go back to details and this search records button. You can press both the family search and ancestry And basically, oh gosh, Family Search and Ancestry will pull up records that they think apply to this person, and you'd kind of look for that census record. I especially liked to use, you could go down here and you could kind of narrow your search, press type, and I would like press census so that it would only show me census records. And then I could just look for a 1940 census that worked. And this was the one. And then I would just add it. Sometimes Family Search wouldn't be able to pull it up. So you'd go over to Ancestry and you could also narrow your search, record type, census, 1900s, 1940s, and then it would literally only show me 1940s. And then I could find that record. So that was kind of the process. And we had this whole spreadsheet and we filled it all out trying to find these 1940 census records. Some of the obstacles that we encountered were some people died before 1940. And so, you're looking for a census record and you realize, oh, actually, this person died in 1922. And so probably they don't have a census record for 1940. Sometimes you would have two people on different records and they have the same mom and dad, they grew up in the same place, but they have different birthdays, and you're like, what's going on? And I think, I'm not totally sure about this, but I think some of the people might have been like, these were military records often, and I think some people might have been lying about their age so that they'd be able to enlist, my birthday's in March versus August, which is kind of interesting. Um, you'd have people with common names, lots of John Smiths, and you couldn't tell which records were theirs, so there was some judgment there. And then also you'd have duplicate profiles, and sometimes there would be a 1940 census in one, and the other one would be missing stuff. So once you merged those, you'd have all the data you needed. So once once the data set was created, that we were able to do some analysis on this, and the results that they found were that actually, by 1940, having that extra year of schooling did actually matter. So for those cadets who actually did the full West Point curriculum, they had like increased income by 15%. And so what this suggests is education isn't just the piece of paper, the diploma you get at the end, but that actually cadets were learning useful skills that last year that some of those cadets missed, which is really interesting. And there's also opportunities for future research in that, because when we link the cadets in Family Search, we get access, to their kids and their parents, and you can link those generations. And basically what that means is we can do more research about how maybe something in these cadets' lives affects their kids and intergenerational effects. And that also having these records connected to profiles gives us kind of a more holistic view of these people. We can see marriage, family, home ownership, lifespan, and you can do more research with all of those things. And Family Search makes that all possible. Thank you for listening. And if you're interested in learning more about that research I was talking about, the paper online, you can read it. It'll be dry, but you're welcome to learn more.
Thanks, Evelyn. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad you showed people how to use that add unconnected person button. I don't know if everyone knew about that already, but it's a really great way to search by birth date because you can't really put birth dates in the other search features. Well, so does anyone have any questions for Evelyn about this project? Emily, one question I have, what was your experience with the Pathway students?
They pretty much for the most part did a really great job. They honestly did most of the spreadsheet. And then occasionally when there was kind of a weird one and they had made a note, we would check it afterward. But really the experience was they mostly did like it was really well done. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have any military in your family?
My great grandpa served in World War II.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
This is Chris Schmink. I do have a question.
Yeah.
I saw the plot, and you said there was a 15% difference. Statistically, what kind of confidence level did you have in that?
Dr. Price definitely will know better than me.
Yeah, so these
It's
are all
it's been
statistically
too many
significant. Yeah.
decades, many
Yeah.
decades since I last took a stats class. So I looked at that and said, nah, I'm curious.
Yeah, that was just what you're seeing there was the graph. We also run it as a regression, and these are all very statistically significant. Um, and actually, it's like very unique to find a research environment in which you can separate the learning from the degree. Uh, and the cool thing here is it was literally the federal government telling West Point, you have to get these guys out of here early and you have to give them a degree. And so, like, no one was making choices. It was kind of imposed on them. And
Oh,
yeah, so it's kind of a
I
cool.
love I love the idea that was presented. I was wondering what the confidence interval. That's great.
Oh, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
Hi. Emmeline, did you show us the actual West Point records? Did I miss a slide?
I not the actual records. We digitized them, and when I showed you that spreadsheet, that was kind of like we had gotten all the information in that spreadsheet. So you have names and birthdays there, and that's what we were working from.
And did you wind up attaching the digitized record to the person?
Oh, Dr. Price, I don't know.
We didn't we're actually working Aaron Phipps is a professor at West Point, and so he has all of the data, the West Point data. He gave us kind of like a little snapshot of it, just enough so we could do the linking. And then
Okay.
we send him the data and he does the merge on the West Point end. And so
Okay, great.
yeah. Yeah,
Very
Sarah.
interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, Sarah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a sociologist advising you on this? Because it's pretty rare to find data where you can disaggregate human capital from signaling. I'm just wondering who you're working with.
Oh yeah, no, all three of us are economists, but I have worked on sociology with sociologists and other studies, and there's one other experiment like it in another country where there are other kind of natural experiments, but this is the only one we found in the United States where people get a degree without having to learn everything that they were supposed to. So yeah, but and then the other nice thing is actually none of these people went to war. We thought maybe it would be confounded by having served in the war, but World War I was so short that basically the government thought the U.S. was going to be involved for longer and was trying to get the troops out there quicker, and then they never had to fight. So cool. Well, Emmeline, thanks. I thought your presentation was fantastic, and so
Yeah, thanks.
yep. So Bev will pass it off to you, and again, you can introduce yourself and share your screen, and we're excited for your presentation.
Okay. Let me. Is that sharing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. Does that look right? Is it just showing the slide, or it's showing the slide and
It's
my
still
notes?
showing the side. Let's see.
Okay, that's fine. It's just showing the slide, not the notes.
No, actually, we
it's
can
not.
see we can see your notes and your thing on the side. So maybe try hit the full screen.
You need to go to present.
Present. I'm in presenter mode. Maybe, okay.
No, not
Maybe.
presenter mode. Because you need to just tell it to present to us.
Yeah, maybe if you hit slideshow and hit like from beginning or something.
There
It's
might be a button
slideshow.
along the top that says switch screens. Do you have two screens, Bev?
I do. I have 3 screens.
So it might be that you need to switch screens.
Okay, you know what? Let me just do this here.
What happens if you click slideshow on the top menu bar?
Okay. Okay, is it working now?
So now share your screen again.
Okay. Okay, is that working?
It's not taking up the whole screen, but it's fine. I think it'll work great. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, now you're good. You're perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, looks great.
Phew. Okay. So my name is Bev Pruitt. I live here in Southern California, central Southern California. We don't claim anyone on the coast to be part of us. There. So I've lived in Kern County since high school. So I've raised all my kids here, and this was a great experience. So helping to get to know the area that I live in. This project we centered on digitizing a local historical newspaper called the Fence Post Country Reader. Let's see. Okay. So I volunteered at the local genealogy society, and a past member who's passed away, her family gathered all of her genealogical information and donated it to the society. In that collection was about 20 years worth of this historical newspaper issues called the Fence Post. And you can see here on the side all the small communities in the southern Sierra Nevada mountains that this Fence Post was circulated to, up in Tehachapi and Keene and Arvin, and there's all little mountain communities, and it circulated to them, and it talked about their beginnings, how they were settled, people that moved into the area, and stuff like that. So the issues span from the mid 90s all the way to the 2000s. And I thought it was out of circulation, but it's still in circulation, but its readership is diminished. But the nice thing about this newspaper is it focused on historical information. They had a few pages that had local information, but most of it was going back and telling how these small communities developed. Here's a map of where we are. This dotted area is our county. This is all Kern County. And so you can see we live in the valley, and over to the west there is that whole mountain range where all these little communities were from. So that just kind of gives you a geographical idea. The project consisted of getting volunteers to read through each of the articles, and we would tag articles that contain genealogical information. A lot of them had old pictures, as you can see here. They had old stories. They had funerals that had happened and information. And so there's historical information along with genealogical information. When they tagged an article, they copied that article and made a physical copy of it as well as a digital copy of it. We used the Memories app through Family Search to upload those to Family Search, and we also added the physical copy to a binder that we kept in our genealogy society. After we uploaded their picture or this article to Family Search, as you can see, we would tag each person that the article either talked about, or in this instance, there was a family picture that we were able to tag along with the article onto Family Search, which I love Family Search for that reason, that we can just preserve these historical articles, put them to everybody that they pertain to, and all of their descendants can now just have that article when and where and if they happen to research that person. Let's see here. Okay. So then after that, they also took we wanted to have both a paper copy and a digital copy. And the reason for that was so both ways. If people came into the library and wanted to do some research, we could pull out a binder and there's an index to all the people that we've tagged in the project. And they could go to that binder and find the article. Likewise, if anyone was doing research online, they could go research their person and find this article attached to their person. And so we thought that was important to keep both people who are searching digitally and people who come into the library to that they could find it both ways. Also up here is a picture of the spreadsheet that we used that will make up the index when we're all finished. That has a link there. It has their family search ID in the index that we are going to print and put in the binder so that they can quickly find it from the binder and go to family search, and from family search go to the binder and vice versa. Okay. Let's see the next slide here. So here's a picture of Lucas Franklin Gabe Bright. This was a family that was one of the first founding families up in Tehachapi, and you can see 4 of those articles were articles about him and his family that we were able to tag. And they have some really great pictures, and I just loved them. I loved the fact that we were able to preserve these records. So these are some of our volunteers. We met at the local family search room here in our stake center. We decided we didn't need an exact library or as a big library, and so we transformed our library into the family search center. And it's worked out very good. We can all meet there at, whenever time we need to. There's space, there's computers, and we would just work on it together. We'd read the articles and copy them. And the volunteers were instrumental in helping to form a flow of how it was going to work, because it can get kind of fiddly with which articles to do and how to attach them and all of that. They were very instrumental in helping us form that process. An impact on the volunteers. One of the ladies said she was excited to apply what she's learned from this project to her own family pictures and articles and stuff that she would like to add to Family Search. Another lady said that she knew the descendants of the Tapp family, and she felt a greater sense of connection to them, finding out about their history and their family. And one sister said that she loved learning about the families who settled this area. So she liked the historical aspect of it. Some of the measurements, goals can't be reached unless they're measured. So over the course of 3 months that we worked on this, we completed 12 issues. We were able to add 40 articles to Family Search, which made up over 200 memories on various people's pages. We added 10 new individuals to the tree. Positive feedback was about 80%, and that's because sometimes the step got a little complicated to remember which step came first. And there was a learning curve, and so that wasn't 100% because of that. And the librarian that was in charge of these historical records was very happy to be able to pass them on to the local history room and not have them in our genealogy room anymore. I chose this project because I thought it was very important to preserve this local information. Kern County is an old county. It's was settled back in the early 1800s. People came here originally for gold, and then oil and ranchers settled this county. I also wanted to make that historical information available to our local community and to all of their descendants. There's about 500,000 people in Bakersfield now, and probably 1 million in all of Kern County. And so that could reach a lot of people. I also enjoyed helping others feel a connection to their ancestors. I wanted to pay homage to those who had come before us and were willing to accomplish hard things. We live in a desert, and it was not easy to settle this area and live here. It's very hot in the summer. And so what they accomplished was really great. And I wanted to help also educate others about Family Search and the wonderful memories tab and uses that Family Search can be. An impact on the community is we were able to build a stronger connection between the Family Search Center and our local genealogy society. There's 2 volunteers from the society that come to the Family Search room, and we still work on it on Wednesday nights together. So we still have a lot more to do, but now that this is in place, we will be able to get there faster. The future of the project, the collection of articles spans between 1993 and 2015. We continue to meet at Family Search, at this Family Search Center on Wednesday nights. Now that we have a flow for the project, it's going to be easier to train new individuals, and I intend to gather more members from the Genealogy Society to help us finish. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bev. That was fantastic. Are there any questions for Bev about her project? So, well, one question I have, Bev, was how did you guys keep track of which issues you'd already done, and or how do you manage that part? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my my job to keep track of that. So what I did is I had a spreadsheet with each issue and the volunteer with each issue that was doing it, and there were different stages. Some of them struggled with copying, some of them struggled with using Family Search, and so I just kept a little note tab on each page that said where they were at and who had it. Some of them couldn't finish, and so because I just kept a little spreadsheet of who had what, then I would call them and say, hey, can I have that issue back? So yeah, I wasn't able to help on the project as much as I liked because I was managing, who had what and what stage they were in and stuff. But yeah, we were able to, and once they were done with an issue, I'm the one that put it in the binder, put it together, and then filed that issue. And so that all went through me.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, that was really cool. Did you use just phone cameras to digitize the records? They're kind of big, it looked like.
Yeah, the phone worked better than the copy machine, because the copy machine's only 8.5 by 11, and so we were having to kind of chop it up and block parts out of it. So the copies in the binder aren't as great. The Memories app that you can get through Family Search, you could zoom out, you could get the whole page in one shot and put that on there. If they were more than one page, that got a little more complicated, so we would have to upload 2 images or 3 images to Family Search. But we made sure to label, this is page 1, this is page 2, this is page 3. And so we kind of got around it that way. But yeah, the papers are about 11 by 14.
Yeah, and the Memories app, that's an awesome idea. And then this really applies to anybody presenting at these wonderful bridge forums, is that I know local newspapers are always hungry for articles. And Joe, would there be any reason that the people heading up these projects couldn't contact a local newspaper? It's a good way to publicize the Family Search Center and the project. And
that sounds like a great idea. I hadn't even thought of that, about as we do local projects, to contact local media, make it easy for them to tell the story about what we're trying to do. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, but there were so many things I liked about what you did. I loved how you're using your project to bring people to the Family Search Center. I love how you're working with the Genealogical Society. I mean, we really need to preserve these genealogical societies. They've been around for so long. their memberships, like my experience has been, the membership tends to be a little older, and anything we can do to make sure those things don't ever, or they're just, once one of those things closes, it's super hard to reboot one of those
Yeah, and
groups.
that's COVID really did a number on our genealogy society here. And you're right, a lot of our membership is aging out.
Yeah.
I think our president has her eye on me and wants me to take over her job, which I'm a little reluctant. But yeah, and they actually have started holding their monthly board meetings in our center.
Cool.
Because we can have it anytime. They don't have to, because it's in the local library right now. But so it has generated probably 3 or 4 new people that have joined the society because of they were interested in the project. So
that's cool.
So yeah,
that's awesome. And you know, if you get to know Pat Hoyer at some point, I got to interact with Pat as she worked with a local genealogical society, and I thought, Pat, I thought your interaction with them was really great, and the way you were willing to serve, and then, you know, obviously they started to ask you to do a lot more, but, you know, but I do think our family search centers could be the best ally for our genealogical societies, and really
yeah, they really are. And these ladies know how to research.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of members of the church, that it's their calling, you know, they're there in body, they want to help, but you get some ladies from the genealogy society who really know how to research and really know how the process is, then they really can be helpful to the members that go there.
That's awesome. Well, Bev, thank you so much. That was such a great presentation. And now we'll move to our third presentation, Sarah Spencer.
Hi, everyone. Okay. I'm just clicking share. Okay. Slideshow. Okay. This is am I audible? This is the project I did for the internship in the winter semester. So bringing people out of darkness and obscurity. So I'll tell a little bit about the project that I started and the data that this is my source of data and kind of what I've been doing on it. So in the Soviet Union, when Stalin became general secretary in 1920 and all the moderates were gone, he consolidated power by a series of secret executions and mass political arrests. And there was a year in 37, 38 when every day he signed a list like you can see on your screen. And that's a list of people that that's his blue scrawl across there, that those people would be executed. So in the time period that he was the leader of the Soviet Union, they estimate between 6 and 12 million people arrested, exiled, or executed. And the most cruel thing was that they were then, you know, disappeared, right? They were taken away from their families. Their families didn't know their fate, and the families would be punished if they ever mentioned again that one of their family members had been taken away or repressed. So people they would destroy information they had about those family members for fear of being persecuted themselves. So after Stalin died, Khrushchev began a process of toning down the repression. And so starting in 56, victims could be officially pardoned or rehabilitated. And this is a picture of a stone built in the memory of the victims of Stalin's repression. And there have been in cities across the former Soviet Union since 1991 memorials and statues and monuments built in honor of victims, but it's often like this where it's all of the victims and not by name, right? And very few individuals have any memorials. Many of these, somewhere up to 12 million people, have not yet been pardoned or rehabilitated, and many have just plain been forgotten because You know, after all, the family was forbidden to talk about them. So certainly since the 70s, there have been people in the Soviet Union who felt this was not right and that we ought to remember them. And they would secretly in their closets gather information. In 1991, it became then legal to gather information. And they have these, what they call books of memory. And that's a stack of them, and they're in that picture. And in the last, say, 10, 15 years, though the information that was collected has been put onto some websites. And two of them I list here on the screen. Memorial was the big one. They were a nonprofit organization in the Soviet Union and around the world, dedicated to preserving the names and information about these people. They have collected 3 million names, but under the current political administration in Russia, Memorial was considered an enemy agent and was shut down. So there's another group of people that has a different website down there on the bottom, and they took those original names and they've been adding more. So we're up to 3.2 million names, right? So just for a minute, just imagine 3.2 million names of the somewhere between 6 and 12 million people who disappeared. Right. So my goal is eventually to add the names of those victims from that first database to Family Search to make it easier for former victims to be found and connected with their ancestors and just reconnected into family units. So partly to just increase representation of people from Russia on the shared tree, to then also preserve the memories of the victims, because we don't know what will happen to that website eventually. And then to allow victims to be found, right? If you go to search for somebody and you find that, you know, imagine finding an uncle on the tree, right? Most people living in Russia today are related to a victim, whether they are currently aware of it or not, just by the sheer scope of those that were repressed. So why me? I studied Russian language, including at BYU, and I lived and worked for in 6 years in Russia. So Novosibirsk, Moscow, and Perm. So where do you start when there's a list of 3 million names? So I looked for those that were born in Perm. And the genealogy connection is, I happen to know that, you know, among the dozen cities or something that I knew something about, that Perm has a digital archive. And sometimes you can find the actual images from, you know, what you would think of for church records up until 1917. Maybe someday it'll be indexed, maybe someday it would be connected to Family Search, but it exists. And so the goal would eventually be to connect victim records to their baptismal records and therefore find their parents. So I lived and worked in Perm for 2 years. So here's Perm on the map. It doesn't look like it's very far from Moscow, given the size of Russia. But it's on the Ural Mountains, so it's where Europe meets Asia. So this is the main page of the website I used. You can see, look, it's been liquidated, meaning closed, and the link to the databases. This is the database I searched. You can search by last name, first name, year of birth, or place of birth. And so I played around with year of birth and decided just to go with place of birth. So 1300 result, 1390. And they downloaded as a text file. It was just really messy, right? And so one person at a time, I copied that into a spreadsheet and converted it into a single line so that they're easier to read and work with. Locating, identifying in this mass of text did the name, the year of birth, the city of birth, the date of execution. So far, about a quarter of them have their execution dates, and the other ones may have just simply been arrested and then later released. And then copying the name, birth year, and birthplace into the relevant fields, using that same add an unconnected person in Family Search. I love it. So I entered it first in Russian letters, which then Family Search knows how to convert. If you try and do it the other way around, it might not spell it the way that a Russian would want to spell it. And for me, it's important that a Russian person be able to find it. And I don't care how it transliterates back into English. So the database doesn't include victims' families. And so I have to add them as unconnected persons. And then I concatenated the text in an Excel spreadsheet. And so far, I've got about 150 in there. So this is what it looked like when I downloaded it. And you can see that there's breaks in between. So that chunk is one person. And then copying it line by line into a spreadsheet. And then cleaning that up into another spreadsheet, which then I could get volunteers to help me with. And then this is what it looks like when I've made a person. You can see that it's in Russian up on top and then English down underneath. And added a source, added the text as a memory. And this person is ready to go and ready to be found. So I chose a project and designed a process which, when completed, would allow us to add at least those 3 million names back into the land of the known, if not the living, right? And then I've added 150 people. I had help from Joe Price and some of the Record Linking Lab students. And because of learning how to do all this sourcing and adding unconnected people, I was able to demonstrate that to some people at church and also to our local genealogical society, right? Go genealogy societies. And I was really glad to be part of a process where I could think about ways to grow the shared tree internationally. And even though it's adding unconnected people, right, they still have to be added. And the other thing I love to do that didn't come up yet in the slides is when I find a blue hint, I tack it on whether I'm related to them or not. So, and anybody that would like to help me with this ongoing project, that's my email. So
Thanks.
that is the end of my, can you stop me sharing?
Yes, I can turn that off. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you
Okay,
so
it looks
much.
like Chris has a question. Go ahead, Chris.
Did you say the current administration in Russia actually was doing some suppression of this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They've shut down Memorial. The website I checked yesterday still exists, but they are not allowed to continue doing what they're doing. So I don't know that they care what I'm doing because I'm not in Russia at the moment. So
very interesting given history and connections.
yeah. Thank you.
So Sarah, did you get blue hints for some of these people? And if
No,
so, like,
I
what kind of
didn't.
hints would pop up? Or
No,
okay.
I do blue hints for everybody else.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Okay. I didn't know
So
if you were getting
in
lucky
between,
and like hitting that.
no. I would love to, but there's nothing. But the
Okay.
idea is that eventually when people start looking for their, right, when people start looking,
Yeah,
that the names will come up.
that's cool. And I'm glad you brought up the point about them being unconnected people, because sometimes there are people that are quite critical of putting little seedlings on the tree, you know, little, but there's still people, and if that's all we know about them, yeah.
And we have to start somewhere. And like I said, I chose Perm because I know that there are some church records, right? And so, you know, in theory, someday we will be able to, you know, find those and connect them. But I thought the first step is just to get them out there and then maybe encourage Russians to, start looking for them.
Mhm. I think the thing that really amazed me about what you found is just how many people were able to upload memories. Or it's incredible that a website attracted so many people that wanted to keep people remembered. And
Yes. So I would say the first 3 million were because the books that Memorial had collected as paper books.
oh, I see.
But
Okay.
the other 200,000, right? So they've got the first 3 million, but then as it's rolled past the 3 million mark, those are things that people are adding on to that list. Yeah. And so the fact that there is a list that is still right collecting names is fantastic.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, any other questions for Sarah? Right. Well, Sarah, I loved your presentation. I have always loved your project. Yeah, I think it's rare for us to gather data that might just get disappeared somehow. And so I'm so grateful you've done that. And I'm grateful our students have been able to help you scrape some of that data so it can be archived and kept. And so, well, thank you for everyone that participated tonight. I just kind of as a recap, I think what you've seen tonight is different places where we can find data to do community projects. Like with Emmeline, it was a cool partnership with West Point. And there are people in our country that love the military, and making sure that we remember all our soldiers is really important. And then I love how Bev is using the newspapers. And I love the idea that there's a newspaper that's talking about old news rather than new news. And that if we can find those groups that are willing to talk about the past, maybe on a Facebook page or in a newspaper or a newsletter, we should definitely capture all of those. And then hopefully you can see that, sometimes we get lucky and we find a website that's got millions and millions of records. And if you ever come across those, maybe we can save you some time. Maybe we can have a BYU student write a script to try to, automate some of that. It's not always possible, but sometimes we can automate some of the data gathering part of that. Well, with that, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and we'll meet again in December. With that, I'll turn off the recording, but if anyone has any questions, we can talk right afterwards.